Hey, Miyagi here. So what you're about to see is a full-length tutorial from my Synthesis and Sound Design Masterclass course. What I'm going to show you is how to create this sound. It's a smooth, progressive house or electro house chorded bass sound, and it has lots of emotive motion and intuitive control. So be sure and grab a free download of this patch in the links below. So although there's a lot of processing on this sound, including the addition of a sub bass as well as external effects, filtering, and EQing, we're going to use our time today to look solely at Massive. To learn how to get even more out of your synths and effects, be sure and check out the Synthesis and Sound Design Masterclass. So, before we get into the patch creation, we're just going to switch the oscillator phases to restart via the gate, which will give our sound much more punch. Now that we have that done, we can start getting into the patch. First, we're going to set up our oscillator section, and we're going to use some traditional analog style oscillators for this sound. Oscillator 1 will be the square saw, with its wavetable set to a little over halfway. Oscillator 2 will be the pulse saw PWM, with the wavetable set almost all the way over to saw, but with a little bit of pulse remaining. We're going to set the pulse width at almost full, which leaves the output of the wave skewed quite a bit and sounding a little gritty. Oscillator 3 will be the square saw again, with the wavetable position set mostly to saw and the intensity rolled down a little bit. So now let's have a listen to our oscillator section. So this sound really is defined by what it sounds like when the filter is open all the way. And now we're going to tune our oscillators to get a rough idea of what we're going to work towards before we start sculpting with the filters. So let's bump oscillator 1 up 7 semitones and drop its volume a tiny bit. Oscillator 2, we're going to drop an octave and detune it a little negatively. Oscillator 3, we're going to leave at the root pitch and just detune it a little positively. So now we should have a pretty huge sound with a very wide range of frequencies. So next, let's work on the filters. I'm going to set them to parallel with the mix 50-50 between the two. Now I'm going to route all three oscillators to send a little bit of their outputs to filter 2. I'm going to choose the low-pass 4 filter for filter 1 and the daft filter for filter 2. Then add a little bit of resonance and roll the cutoffs all the way down. So next I'm going to take envelope 2 and apply it to the filter cutoffs, using it to bring the pitch back to about halfway open. I'll quickly adjust envelope 2 to have no attack, no sustain, and a decay of about 50%. Now we can start hearing the pluck. Next I'm going to take the white noise and route it just to filter 1. I'm going to use envelope 2 to bring its amplitude up a bit, and I'm going to bring the color up all the way. Next I'm going to add a little bit of feedback, not much, just about 25% to fatten it up. Next, let's have a look at the effects and the routings. I want to have insert 1 behind filter 1 and insert 2 behind filter 2. For insert 1, I'm going to choose the sine shaper. And I'm going to add a little bit of drive, and I'm going to bring the wet dry up to about 40%. Because we put the white noise only through filter 1, it's going to be distorted in this manner. We're going to use a different type of distortion for filter 2. So for insert 2, which is behind filter 2, I'm going to choose the hard clipper, and I'm going to bring the drive up most of the way. Then I'm going to send envelope 2 over to the wet dry and use it to bring the signal up a little bit. Next, we're going to go to the global effects, and we're going to add some classic tube to the whole sound. A little bit of drive and a little bit of signal, as well as some reverb. Again, nothing drastic. So now let's quickly activate the EQ and use it to bring the highs up quite a bit. So now we're going to do something really cool. We're going to take Massive's Macro 1 knob and apply it to a whole series of parameters. I'm going to apply it to the cutoffs of filters 1 and 2 and give it a 100% value. Next, I'm going to add it to the decay time of envelope 2 and give it a little bit of mod value. Finally, I'm going to add it to the sidechain slot on insert 2. This means that envelope 2's effect on the wet dry will now be controlled by the signal from macro 1. More macro 1 means more envelope 2 going to the wet dry. Now let's have a listen to Massive's overall output, and I'll adjust macro 1 so you can hear the huge impact this kind of modulator on modulator mapping can have. So now let's have a listen to the whole thing with the sub bass, external effects, external EQing, filtering, etc., and the beat. Nice. So, as I mentioned, I've done a fair amount of extra processing on this. It's totally integral to the overall sound, and it really helps it go from sounding good to sounding professional. So to learn more about this kind of approach, be sure and check out the Synthesis and Sound Design Masterclass. We'll go through over 10 hours of video content looking at concepts and their implications and how to use them, and getting you super comfortable defining your own sound as an artist. Also, be sure and download this patch using the link below.